Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Good morning to those who are gathered here in the sanctuary in Rugby Road, and to all who are joining us online via Zoom. As we come together for worship, let us enjoy this musical prelude offered by Scott Deveaux. Thank you so much for that, Scott. Greetings and welcome to the UU congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Greg Townsend, and I am pleased to be serving as your worship weaver this morning. This sanctuary was built over 70 years ago on land that was the homeland of the Monacan people and that was once cared for by enslaved people from Africa. We honor all who dwelt here and all in our congregation whose lives led to this moment of our gathering as a community of memory and hope. I invite you now to take a moment to greet others who are with us in worship this morning. Those of you on Zoom can unmute and say hello to one another. And those of you in the building, you are welcome to greet your neighbors.
Morning.
Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
To see your faces.
Hi, Carol, Rosalie, Marion, Lara.
Hi.
Hi.
And Renee. Who did I miss? Lots of people.
Lots of people on today. It's nice.
Janine.
Janine.
I'm going to remute everybody.
I loved hearing the chirping birds for a moment there.
Yeah.
It is so good to be with one another. We are especially happy to welcome those who are new to our congregation and invite you to join us for fellowship in the social hall after the service. Feel free to use one of our red coffee mugs, which are for newcomers to our congregation. We ask that everyone in the sanctuary and throughout the building keep your high quality N95 or KN95 mask in place, covering both your nose and mouth. If you don't have one, we can get you one. If you need a sip of water or a breath of fresh air, please step outside and then come back and join us. This act of kindness keeps everyone as safe as possible as we continue to navigate life during the ongoing pandemic. We also have hand sanitizer in the pews, which we invite you to use as needed. We also have seating in the social hall where you can watch a live stream of the service. Families with young children are most welcome in the sanctuary, but if you need a roomier space, the social hall can be a good option. Please do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable as we worship together. Many thanks to all the folks helping us share worship both here and online. Our on-site greeters, ushers, and hospitality and logistics team, and special thanks to our AV Tech team, Rachel Buckland and Sean Scally, supporting the dual platform worship both online and here on Rugby Road. Our thanks to Scott Deveaux for sharing his musical gifts, and I am pleased to be weaving worship this morning with Reverend Tim. Here to greet you from your Board of Trustees is Breck Gastinger.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see you. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, we want to welcome each and every one of you this morning. As I was thinking about what has made this place special over 20 years for my wife and I was thinking about how each of us, we're several hundred people gathered from very different places, geographically, emotionally, professionally. And we each have our orbits. You know, we have our personal lives, our personal histories. We have, a range of experiences and things that we've accomplished in our lives. And yet, all of these different orbits intersect right now, which is really cool. For some of us, those experiences and accomplishments are in their past and have built them into who they are. And for some of the youngest ones around, theirs are still to come. And yet still, we're all intersecting in this moment. And what's really cool about that is just think how much larger our world is for the interactions that we have together. And just fills me with joy to be here and with each and every one of you that have made it today in person or on Zoom. So thank you for all that you contribute.
Thank you so much, Breck. I have several important announcements. Next Sunday is a very special day here at the UU Congregation of Charlottesville as we celebrate Reverend Leah's 30 years of leadership and service to this congregation. We are inviting anyone who would like to share memories or reflections to record a brief video and submit it to the link found in Friday's newsletter. Those on Zoom will see the link in the chat box. If you want to submit your memories in writing, please email them to Reverend Tim at uucharlottesville.org. We need all submissions by tomorrow, so please get them to us ASAP. Your memories and reflections will play an important part in next Sunday's service as we celebrate Reverend Leah. I invite and I encourage you to sign up to help out with the reception next week. We need people to help with setup, service, and cleaning. There's a sign up out in the hall. Are you new to the UU Congregation of Charlottesville? If you are, join us today at 12:15 for our monthly newcomer circle outside under the pergola near the playground. The circle lasts for 30 minutes and you don't need to register or sign up in advance. Feel free to bring your coffee or tea outside and join Reverend Tim and several lay leaders for relaxed conversation. The UU Congregation of Charlottesville is expanding its presence on social media. We are currently growing our Twitter profile and invite anyone on Twitter to follow us at UUCville. And now let us center ourselves for worship.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I see all of you with your smartphones out following at UUCville right now, so good job. So I want to begin this morning with some brief opening words from my colleague and former UUA president, Bill Schultz. He says, "Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. Come, let us worship together." Now, for our opening song this morning, Music director Scott Deveaux is going to teach and lead us in a new song, which is a kind of a sing-along, Hold Everybody Up by Melanie DeMore. Now, this is a special song, so what I'd like to do is invite our children to go ahead and come on down and join us here down on the carpet. And Scott's going to teach you and everybody in the congregation this new wonderful song.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our new choir masks that just arrived today. They're a little large, as you can see. They make it look like we have very large noses that we're trying to hide, but this gives us a lot of room to breathe, which we currently did not have. So I'm really excited about that, but I'll also be willing to take it off because I'm leading everybody here. Okay, we got ourselves a cool song. Do we have the words up there yet? They're very simple. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. Can we do that again? We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. Then we do it again. We got to hold everybody. This time we go, we got to hold everybody up. Everybody up. Try it again. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. Do it again, the whole thing. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got another section here. We go, hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. Last thing, we do it that way. Let's try it again from the beginning. Back to the beginning. We gotta go back and forth here. 1, 2, 3. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. We got to hold everybody. We got to hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
I now invite Elaine Chapman to light our chalice and the lanterns the children will take with them to class. Rachel, can you put the words of the unison chalice lighting up, please? All right. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our trust for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. And we can do the hand motions. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of open minds. This is the church of helping hands. This is the church of loving hearts. And in a moment, we're going to sing our young people to their RE groups with a hymn as we leave this friendly place. This friendly place.
Okay, so you just saw your first miracle this morning, which is I was actually able to get up off the floor. So hopefully we won't need a forklift in the future, but all right, well, I'd like to now invite us into a time of centering and sharing. I have a prayer here I was going to share, but I think I want to actually instead remind us this morning that this is LGBTQ or Queer History Month, and that this past Tuesday was National Coming Out Day. I think that we're talking a lot this month about courage, about peace, and I hope that we all bear in mind the courage that is still required for so many to come out, to be able to openly be who they are and live as who they are. And I think the challenge, the requirement, the responsibility of all of us is to build a world, both within these walls and beyond, to build a world in which everyone can be who they are, freely, openly, and with love. That world is not here yet, but it's congregations like this one that can help bend that arc of acceptance and love for all people. As we now sit with these words, let's just take a moment to be together in the shared silence. Blessed be. We are part of an interdependent web and a community that cares for one another. Part of how we embody this care is by making time to share the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts. I will now, amen, and blessed be.
He's masked, didn't wear glasses. This community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. Another way we show our care for one another is in sharing our financial gifts with our community and our congregation. Our monthly social action collection is being taken for the New Beginnings Food Ministry, and you can make your donation throughout the month of October. We ask that you give generously to support New Beginnings Food Ministry. Sean, can you show us the social action slide for giving? Thank you. Each week, we invite everyone to the spiritual practice of generosity by giving to the ministry of our congregation. Through your pledges and with the weekly Sunday morning offering, together, we build the future of our congregation and our larger community. This is our shared ministry. From you receive, and to you we give. During the music which follows, you may choose to make your Sunday morning offerings by using the text address or going to our website. Here in the sanctuary, you may bring cash or checks forward. During this musical prayer of thanksgiving, you are invited to share not only financial gifts, but you are also invited to share the joys and sorrows in your hearts. Those on Zoom may put them in the chat box, and those of you at Rugby Road may come forward to place a stone in the water. The stone symbolizes what is in your heart, and the water represents the soothing embrace our caring community offers for your joys and sorrows. You may also leave us a note on the joy and sorrow paper provided here. Let us hold one another in a compassionate embrace, and let us dedicate all of the many gifts we share with one another by saying, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." You may come forward now with your gifts and your prayers.
Before I begin Greg and I begin the reading, just a couple of quick updates. Greta just reminded me that if you go down the ramp here out this door, there's some wonderful thoughts from Tom Crowell about the church, and so definitely be worth stopping by and learning a little bit more about Tom. And then also Edith Good just mentioned that one of our attendees today lost her name tag potentially in the parking lot, and it had her COVID vaccine card in it. So if anybody sees a name tag, please bring it back. If you see it outside or in here, please give it to me or someone, and we want to get that, or give it to Edith. Yeah, that's probably the best. So great, okay. Our reading this morning is from the Taoist tradition, and it is actually a call and response reading, so Greg and I are going to do this back and forth, and it's called simply, If There Is to Be Peace, and it's from the Taoist master Lao Tzu. If there is to be peace in the world,
there must be peace in the nations.
If there is to be peace in the nations,
there must be peace in the cities.
If there is to be peace in the cities,
there must be peace between neighbors.
If there is to be peace between neighbors,
there must be peace in the home.
If there is to be peace in the home,
there must be peace in the heart.
Thank you, Greg. Well, good morning again, everyone. Always great to be with you. Great to see so many of you in the sanctuary today, and welcome to those of you who are joining us on Zoom. We're so very grateful to have you here. I have to say that I love those words from the Taoist teacher and poet Lao Tzu. I think they point so eloquently and powerfully and simply to how deeply interconnected peace is at every level of our lives, from the individual human heart to peace among the nations and peace between humankind and this planet that is our home. Now, before I share a few thoughts about peace and courage and justice, let me just reiterate again, feel like this is Announcement Sunday here at the UU Congregation of Charlottesville. Again, to remind you about Reverend Leah's celebration next Sunday for her 30 extraordinary years here at the UU Congregation of Charlottesville. You know, I've only been working with Leah for a few short months, but I have been so impressed and inspired by her brilliance, her creativity, her passion for this congregation, and her wonderful kindness and compassion. Now, look, I know I'm preaching literally to the choir here, but I do hope that many of you will take a few minutes today or tomorrow, but by tomorrow, please, to record a brief video or send me an email with your thoughts, your stories, and your appreciations about Reverend Leah. Okay. Now, whenever I preach a sermon about peace, the first thing that always comes to mind, I'm sorry to say, is just how little of it there seems to be in our lives, our communities, our country, and yes, in the world. How I wish I could begin by telling you that I'm feeling really hopeful and optimistic about the prospects for peace in the world. But, and this has become such a refrain on so many Sunday mornings for me, this week we saw another terrible shooting, this time in Raleigh, North Carolina. In addition, 2 courtroom verdicts that were handed down this week reminded us of the horrific shootings that took place at Sandy Hook Elementary School and at the high school in Parkland, Florida. I have to say that I have offered thoughts and prayers so many Sundays after one of these shootings that the words just don't seem to matter anymore. But as bad as this litany of violence that continues, as bad as that is, we cannot and must not give in to despair and resignation. So often after one of these mass shootings, we hear how impossible it is to find anything resembling a solution, or that the only answer is more guns and more violence. I, for one, refuse to accept the idea that there is nothing we can do, or that the only option is to fight fire with fire. And the place where I think we can begin to find hope and courage is right here in the individual human heart, and right here in communities like the UU Congregation of Charlottesville. For all of its challenges and all of its growing edges, I do believe that religious communities can provide a place and a space to recommit ourselves to the journey towards peace and justice. And I would like to make that beginning today by echoing the words of our reading a few minutes ago, and simply say that there cannot be peace in our families, our neighborhoods, our cities, or in the world unless there is peace in our hearts. And that connection between inner and outer peace, between a peaceful heart and a peaceful world, always reminds me of a story from the Christian scriptures, the Gospels, and I'd like to just remind you about that story today. I'm sure many of you have heard it before, but if you haven't, here we go. One day, while crossing a body of water in a boat, Jesus and his disciples encounter a powerful storm. That slide that's up on the screen right now is a painting by Rembrandt called The Storm at Sea. I'll just mention that unfortunately, this painting was one that was stolen from the Gardner Museum in Boston some years ago, and it is still missing. So I guess thank God for Google that we still have the image, but we don't have the painting. So in this story, the boat is tossed about violently, and fear and panic grip the disciples. Meanwhile, Jesus is in the back of the boat, fast asleep. When the disciples are certain that the boat is going to capsize, they wake Jesus up, plead for his help, and ask if he doesn't care that we are all about to die. Now, according to the story, Jesus calms the raging storm with these 3 words: peace, be still. After the wind ceases and the waters calm, Jesus turns to his disciples and questions why they are so consumed with fear and why they have so little faith. Now, I must say that there is something about this story that really speaks to me right now, especially in these violent and uncertain times. I have to say that many days it feels as if I am one of those disciples in the boat, rocking violently, fearful and anxious. And I think what speaks to me about this story is not the possibility of a superhuman or a supernatural miracle in which Jesus somehow has control over the laws of nature. What speaks to me is the power and simplicity of 3 words: peace, be still. Peace, be still. When I read and reread those words, or even say them out loud and then take time to breathe, that underlying sort of fear and anxiety begins to wane. And the storm that so often plagues my heart and my spirit begins to calm, even if just for a little. Now, we have no way of knowing what really happened that day, or if Jesus and his disciples actually got caught in that storm. The whole story could very well be a story. But if they did encounter a storm that made them fearful for their lives, I'm guessing that the miracle in that moment wasn't Jesus rewriting the laws of nature, but rather his calming the storm in their hearts and minds. In that moment, Jesus calmed the disciples with his peaceful presence and his calming words, urging them to be as he was, still, breathing, and to see that there is an alternative to fear. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. And I think that those three simple words offer us the beginning of a path towards a world of peace and justice. I know it may sound overly simplistic, but I believe that if we can simply begin to breathe, to be still, and to experience that inner peace, we can calm the storms and the fears in our own hearts. And as Jesus demonstrated that day in the boat, the calm and stillness in one heart radiates outward and has the power to calm the storms raging in other hearts and all around us. So how exactly does that work? How can peace in one heart lead to peace and justice in the world? Well, the answer, I think, can be found in an observation made by spiritual teachers, mystics, and leading important figures in almost all of the world's religious traditions. As we begin to discover and develop places of peace within ourselves, that inner peace begins to transform us and transform how we perceive and interact with others. Rather than seeing another as a threat or as an enemy, a peaceful heart enables us to begin to see them as a fellow human being, flawed and broken, fearful and perhaps suspicious, just as we are. And the moment we can begin to see another as we see ourselves, I think the seeds of genuine and lasting peace have been planted. Thich Nhat Hanh, the wonderful, recently deceased Buddhist priest and teacher, has written very powerfully about the connections between inner peace and our deep connections to others, which he calls, and he sort of invented a word here, he calls it interbeing. Interbeing. He says that when we experience a sense of inner peace and shared presence, we become deeply aware of the unity and oneness at the heart of all existence. And in those moments, we cannot help but see a sibling rather than an enemy, including those with whom we may differ or share little in common. Now, the question becomes, okay, we see that. How does that, can you actually change the world, change a law, create justice that way? The answer is yes. And I want to share a story with you now that I think illustrates this, the power of peace, of a peaceful heart, and peace and nonviolence to remake the world. This story takes place quite a few years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, in the winter and spring of 1960. It begins with the determination of a group of mostly African-American college students to end segregation at restaurants and lunch counters in the city of Nashville. The students chose to use nonviolent methods, in this case, sit-ins, to raise awareness about the injustice of segregation and to pressure city leaders to change unjust and discriminatory laws. Now, prior to launching the sit-in campaign, the students took extensive training in nonviolent resistance that was offered by an extraordinary minister and one of my real heroes, a man named James Lawson. Lawson had studied Gandhi's methods in India and was one of the first people to introduce those methods to another young minister you may have heard of, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Here's an image of Lawson leading one of those workshops in Nashville. Reverend Lawson, by the way, is still living. He's now, I think, in his early or mid-90s. Still living, still preaching. He's an incredible, incredible human being. Now, during these training sessions, Lawson and the students prayed, meditated, and sang together. They engaged in what the civil rights movement came to call a process of self-purification. And what was meant by that was that they sought to cultivate deep-seated peace and compassion in their hearts. And they also role-played interacting with their adversaries, if you will. Lawson taught the students to never lose sight of the humanity of the oppressor, even in the midst of the most violent behavior. He also taught them to try and make eye contact with their adversary so that each individual could see into the heart of another. As Lawson famously taught them, if they could follow the path of an eye to an eye, rather than an eye for an eye, the students could transform hatred and violence into justice and peace. Well, the sit-ins began in February of 1960, and from the outset, they were marked by courageous nonviolence on the part of the students and hateful violence on the part of the citizens of Nashville and the Nashville police. There's an image of some of the protesters sitting in at one of the lunch counters. Now, throughout the campaign, one of the most important student leaders and another true heroine of the civil rights movement was a woman named Diane Nash. Diane Nash is the woman wearing the glasses, sitting at the lunch counter there. From the beginning of the campaign, Diane Nash demonstrated extraordinary skill and wisdom. She possessed an uncanny ability to remain calm and centered in the face of the most vicious insults and violent attacks. She was also able, as Lawson had taught, to find at least a shred of humanity in the midst of the most inhumane behavior. Without question, Diane Nash embodied the power and the blessings of a peaceful and nonviolent heart. After 2 months of courageous sit-ins, attacks by angry mobs, and mass arrests by the police, tensions reached a boiling point in Nashville when the home of a prominent black attorney who had defended the students in court was firebombed. The following day, student activists marched to City Hall to confront Nashville's segregationist mayor, Ben West. A few weeks earlier, the mayor had ordered Nashville's police to stand aside so that angry mobs could beat the students, and then had ordered the police to arrest the students rather than those engaging in mob violence. That's Mayor West there standing on the left. When the students reached City Hall, he, as you can see in this picture, met them on the steps. At first, the mayor responded angrily and defensively, blaming the students, those troublemakers, for increasing tensions and provoking violence, including the bombing of the attorney's home. Well, it was at this moment that Diane Nash, and you can see her there in the picture, stepped forward to confront Mayor West. And this is one of the least well-known and most iconic moments in the history of the civil rights movement. Rather than shouting at the mayor or even blaming him for the violence he had ordered and condoned, Diane Nash looked the mayor right in the eye and asked him in a calm, courageous, and resolute voice if he felt that it was right to discriminate against other human beings on the basis of race or skin color. Mayor West, who was expecting anger in a shouting match, was caught off guard by this reasoned appeal to his humanity. He hesitated and responded that, well, yeah, in theory, discrimination, I don't support that. Diane Nash didn't settle for platitudes or empty words. She persisted and pressed the mayor to follow the logic of his statement. Then, Mr. Mayor, are you recommending that the lunch counters be desegregated? Confronted again by this determined appeal to his fairness and to human dignity, the mayor paused, thought for a moment, and then simply answered, well, yes, I do. The students erupted in applause, and in a matter of just a few weeks, Nashville's lunch counters were desegregated. When he was interviewed sometime after his encounter with Diane Nash, and I think you could probably watch this on YouTube, Mayor West tried to explain what happened to him in that moment. He said, I found that I had to answer her questions frankly and honestly, that I didn't agree that it was morally right to refuse them service. I got a lot of criticism, but if I had to answer that question again, I would answer it in the same way because it was a moral question, and it was one I had to answer as a man and not as a politician. That moment, that courage that Diane Nash showed, I think is an example, is a case study, if you will, in the transformative power of peace and nonviolence. A power that can, as Dr. King said so frequently, make a way out of no way. Rather than following the path Mayor West had chosen over the preceding days and weeks, a path of intimidation and harassment and violence, Diane Nash and her fellow students let the peace in their hearts and the courage of their convictions guide them. They boldly and courageously challenged an unjust status quo and put their lives on the line. But in doing so, they never resorted to the cruelty, the violence, and the hatred of their oppressors. Instead, they followed the path of the peaceful heart, a path that enabled them to change the world by resisting oppression, stirring the conscience, and touching the humanity of their oppressor. Now, Diane Nash didn't stop with Nashville's lunch counters. She was a leader and organizer of the Freedom Rides. She took part in countless other sit-ins across the South. She was a founder of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, frequently known as SNCC. And she was a key organizer and strategist in the Alabama Voting Rights Campaign that eventually resulted in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. For all of her extraordinary contributions to justice, democracy, and nonviolence, I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, that many of you have never heard of Diane Nash. I first learned about her incredible courage and brilliance from reading a wonderful book that was written some years ago by the late writer David Halberstam called The Children. And this was a book that focused on the history of those folks in the movement who were not getting all the headlines and that the history books have consistently lifted up. But like so many, and especially so many women of color, Diane Nash's contributions have generally been ignored and minimized. Although it came many years later than it should have, I am happy to say that just a few weeks ago, Diane Nash was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And here's a picture of President Biden putting the Medal of Freedom on her, around her shoulders. Diane Nash, I think, is 85. If If you ask me, she should have got that when she was 25. But now, President Biden, at the ceremony, when he was giving the medal out to Diane Nash and others, he said of her, he said, her activism echoes the call of freedom around the world today. And yet, Diane is the first to say that the medal is shared with hundreds of thousands of patriotic Americans who sacrificed so much for the cause of liberty and justice for all. And by the way, the president said, Diane asked me to make sure to add that part because she didn't want to take all the credit herself. I wonder if that's one of many reasons why history doesn't remember, because Diane Nash has a heart filled with humility. It is the courage, the activism, and the accomplishments of people like Diane Nash. It's that gives me hope this day. Cultivating peace in our hearts is the way to peace in our communities and in our world. We will never make our lives or this world safer by turning our homes, our schools, our religious communities, and our world into arsenals of fear and hate. Rather, we must have the courage to do the hard work of peace and justice, work that makes it possible to transform both hateful hearts and unjust systems of oppression. Look, I know that sounds pretty idealistic in the world we live in today, a world that is so badly broken. But as James Lawson, Diane Nash, and all the courageous students in Nashville proved in 1960, peace and nonviolence are stronger than vengeance. And they can, in Dr. King's famous words, tear down gigantic mountains of evil. So I'm going to do my best to follow the path of peace, the path of Gandhi and King, of James Lawson and Diane Nash. And that path begins right here in my heart and in my life and in your hearts and in your lives. So my invitation to all of us today is to let peace and nonviolence be our guide. Let peace begin with prayer and meditation, with quiet and with stillness. Let peace begin as our hearts open to the dignity and the humanity of others, including those with whom we may differ and disagree. And let peace and justice begin with our courage and determination to move beyond these walls so that we may be instruments of peace and justice in the world. I don't know if committing ourselves to cultivating peace in our hearts and to being instruments of peace in the world, I don't know how far that will go in healing all the brokenness around us. But I do know that if we choose to sit behind walls of fear and indifference, things will never change. So let us now rise in body or spirit and sing This Is My Song, hymn number 159 in the gray hymnal. And let this beautiful song be our call and our commitment to build a world of peace, a peace that begins with you and with me. Amen. Blessed be. Thank you for listening, and please rise.
Peace.
forth from this place, let us journey this day. Let us journey from despair to hope, from fear to courage. Let us journey from the voices of hate to those of love, and from violence to peace. And let peace, that beautiful place of stillness and calm and compassion, let peace fill our hearts, our congregation, our city, our nation, and our world. Friends, be well. Take very good care of yourselves, of each other, and of the world. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to take time to simply be. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. Amen, and go in peace.